living thing with the water teams and that move around it or about it, according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, Be fruitful and increase in number and fill the waters and the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth. And there was evening and there was morning, the fifth day. And God said, Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock, creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind. And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kind, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, Let us make mankind in our image and our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea, and the birds in the sky, over the livestock, and over the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. God blessed them and said to them, Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea, and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground. Then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that was fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds in the sky, and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant food. And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day.
All right, thank you, Mike. I'm going to continue on because whoever put these chapters and verses here saw fit to end this chapter here, but it's pretty clear that this story goes on for a bit until we start the next story. So I'll read a couple verses out of chapter 2. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. And God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. Now we're going to follow a certain pattern, okay? We're going to read part of the word, and then we're going to talk about it. I'm going to ask you what things you noticed about that. What stood out as a question? What seemed weird? What popped out at you? And I expect that's going to happen, I hope, around week 4, 5, 6. That's when it happened for us. At first, I'm going to point out a bunch of these things so that I can get you all primed to see the things we want to see. And so the first thing that I hope you notice is there was a lot of repetition in this. You heard a lot of phrases over and over again. And it turns out, if you count them, and we can go ahead and show... I'm looking at it back here, but y'all can't see it. That's all right. It is wasp season. Turns out that there's certain phrases that show up these specific number of times. And so we're going to see that the phrase God blessed is going to show up 3 times. And the phrase let there be is going to show up 3 times.
Center button advances you.
All right. The phrase it was so is going to show up 7 times. The phrase and God saw is going to show up 7 times. The phrase it was good or it was very good is going to show up 7 times. Interestingly enough, there is one day about which it is not said it was good. You want to guess what that day is? There's a day that you all probably think this is not the good day of the week. What day is it? If you had to pick a day that's not the good day of the week, what is it? Monday. Monday has no it was good. But if there's 7 of them, what does that mean? There's 7 it was goods. Monday doesn't have one. What does that tell you about the other days? One of them's got 2. One of them's got 2. And it's Tuesday. Traditionally, if you're Jewish, the day that you're going to get married is what do you think day it's going to be? You going to pick Monday? A day that's not good? We're going to pick the day that's got 2 it was good. Traditionally, you get married on Tuesday if you're Jewish. Because of this. We got 7 and 3. You got those together, what do you get? What's 7 plus 3? 10. Wouldn't it be crazy if there were a bunch of phrases that showed up 10 times in our story? And it turns out that it is. According to its kind, shows up 10 times. The phrase, and God said, shows up 10 times. Let there be. And God created or God made show up 10 times. Well, let's go on. 21 times. What is 21 in relation to 7? 3 times 7 is 21. The word earth is going to show up 21 times. The word heaven is going to show up 21 times. 35, 7 times 5. God. The word God is going to show up 35 times in this chapter. Actually, we're going through to chapter 2, verse 4, which is the end of this first story. Turns out the first verse has got 7 words in it in the Hebrew. The second verse has 14 words in it. And as you go through, you're going to find other key parts of the story where the number of words is a multiple of 7. So that's the first thing that ought to jump out at us, that there's repetition. But as you look deeper, you're going to find out there's a kind of specific repetition here that could not be coincidence. There's 7 days in this story, right? 7 is going to be a number of great importance in the Bible as we study it. We're going to find out that God has put that in the way that He has crafted the story. The second thing that I never noticed until somebody pointed this out to me, because I'm going to be honest, I've read this many times, and I've read it, sat down, like I want to understand how God made the earth. I want to understand, because there's some weird things about the order in which they get created. I want to understand how this worked. And it wasn't until someone pointed out to me, this story is not about how God made the earth. It's about why God made the earth. And when you start looking at it as why, we're going to see some really interesting things. Our story starts by telling us that the earth was formless and void. That's how most of our translations are going to go. Mine says formless and empty. The idea that's in the Hebrew here is that there was nothing and there was chaos. Which is kind of, we think about that, well, how do you have chaos? Chaos is things that are out of order, lots of things going on that don't make sense, they're not in order. How do you have that if you have nothing? But that's how the story begins. There's nothing and there's chaos. And what is our God going to do about that? He's going to fix the nothingness and He's going to fix the chaos. And He's going to fix the chaos first. How do you fix chaos? You start putting things in order. And so it turns out it's a story of separating and filling. And there's a specific order that this happens in. On the first day, God's going to separate light from darkness. On the fourth day, God is going to fill the things that make light. God's going to make the sun, the moon, and the stars on the fourth day. On the second day, God is going to separate the waters from the sky. Okay, and this whole thing about the vault, the firmament, what is it talking about? God is separating vault, sky from waters. What does He do on the fifth day? He fills the waters and He fills the sky with fish and with birds. And it turns out that on the third day, God separates water from land. Okay? And so what is He going to do on the sixth day? He's going to fill the things, He's going to fill the land with things. And He's going to make all the beasts of the field and the things that teem on the land, and He's going to make mankind. We live on the land. I live on the land, not the water. I don't know about you all. I like my feet on the ground. And so there's a certain kind of symmetry to this. And it turns out that this is a method that they use, not just in the Bible, but in ancient texts from that era, meaning thousands of years era. Ancient texts from that time, they use this thing called a chiasm, or a chiasmus. And so that's actually a Greek word, which is named after the Greek letter chi, or X. If you transliterated it, it's X. And there's something interesting about the letter X. It's kind of small up there, but we have the letter X. It's got a symmetry, right? You can look at it top to bottom, side to side. It will fold in on itself. And a chiasm is a literary structure that has this kind of symmetry to it. If we go back, you see the symmetry here? Like day 1, 2, 3, God's going to separate 3 different things. On days 4, 5, 6, God is going to fill those things in the same order that he separated them. It's a kind of symmetry. It turns out there's two ways you can do this. You can either go A, B, C, C, B, A. You go in the reverse order. Or what we just saw here in Genesis, it's A, B, C, A, B, C. Well, whichever way you do it, it points to the thing in the middle. That's its purpose. It points to what we call the treasure in the middle. And the reason for doing this is that they understood that if you make someone work for something, if they discover it themselves, and I don't know if I'm sure you've experienced this in your life, where someone has told you something and it's just hard for you to remember. You forget it the next day, or if you're me, you forget it 5 minutes after you heard it. But things that you discover yourself, if there's anything that you discovered yourself that like, oh, that's how that works, you're going to remember that for the rest of your life. And so, in this time and in the Bible, this is here to help us discover it on our own. Okay? And it turns out that this first story is so amazingly put together. It's not just one kind of chiasm. It's two kinds of chiasms. And if you would read these stories and just look at the length, and if your Bible is laid out in paragraphs, some of them are more laid out like each verse is a paragraph. Some of them are more laid out, more like we do paragraphs in English. You'll find out that the first paragraph is a short paragraph. The second paragraph is a medium one. The third one is a long paragraph. Fourth one's a long paragraph. And then it starts getting shorter again with day 5. And day 6 would be a very short paragraph, except that we've got this story about mankind being tacked onto it. And so it would be this kind of chiasm, but there's an anomaly in it. And so we find out that the Bible is both kinds of chiasms. It's ABC, CBA, and it's also ABC, ABC. But wait, it turns out that this thing is so well crafted. And I want to tell you, when I read this so many times and I was trying to figure out how the world was made, I read it and I'm like, why did they write it this way? Why is it this isn't helping me at all? I want to understand how God made things, and this story is just not helping me. Why would you write the story of creation this way? And it turns out this story is so well crafted that if you would count the words in Hebrew, and you got to take out the part about mankind, okay? So it's the part of the story that gets up through the creation apart from man. And you counted up the words, and you went to the exact middle word. You will find the word sacred times. That's in day 4. Which turns out it's going to be the exact middle of both of these chiasms. We've got two kinds of chiasms. Let's just step back and think about that for a minute. Let's go back to the repetition. The numbers 3 and 7 are going to be important, and we've got repetitions of phrases 3 times. We've got repetitions of phrases 7 times. We've got repetitions of phrases 3 plus 7. We've got repetitions of phrases 3 times 7. We've got the 7th thrown up in the first sentence has got 7. The second idea has got 14. We've got one kind of chiasm. We've got another kind of chiasm in it. We've got the exact number of words pointing to the exact dead center of this story being the middle of the chiasm. This is incredible. The way it has been written is unbelievably complex. It has an unbelievable symmetry to it. Apart from the fact that it has a beauty to it in the way it's been written. And so we're supposed to dig, and we're supposed to get to the middle, and we find out. I'm going to read the whole 4th day. Turns out that the 4th day is our center. The exact middle is going to be this word sacred times. And God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark seasons, is how I have it in this version of the NIV. Some versions will have sacred times, and days and years. And let them be lights in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth. And it was so. That's the treasure. Like, all of this beautiful symmetry is pointing to the fact that God made the sun and the moon and the stars to mark sacred times. That's what I'm supposed to get out of this? Right? And I don't know about you, but like the first time I heard this, I was like, what? Like what is that? What does that mean? Like why would that even be important? And here is where we're going to look at it through the lens of the people who first heard this. So traditionally, who was the group of people that first heard this story? The way that it is written here. Who was it first delivered to? Anybody want to guess? So traditionally, Moses comes down off of Mount Sinai. He's bringing the Ten Commandments with him, right? Actual physical pieces of stone with the Ten Commandments on it. But traditionally, Moses is bringing down all of Torah. And he's going to deliver it to the Israelites. And so he's going to start with this story. And he's going to tell it to a people who have just come out of Egypt. And what were they doing in Egypt? Who were they? They were slaves. And what did they do as slaves? We find out in the story of Exodus, they're making bricks. They got a quota of bricks that they're supposed to make. And if you're a slave in Egypt and you make bricks, that's why the Pharaoh's got you around, how many days off do you think you get? I mean, you think they work, work 5 days, 2 off, get a 2-day weekend. Sometimes there's a holiday, you get a 3-day weekend. Thanksgiving, you might get a 4-day weekend. No. Every day. Every day, from the time you get up to the time you go to bed, you make bricks. They came from Egypt, and they heard about the Egyptian gods. Okay? Now, I only know a few stories about the Egyptian gods. I've heard a lot more about the Greek gods, and probably all of you have too, because it permeates our culture. We've heard these stories about the Greek gods. We're going to find out that this God is a God who takes emptiness and fills it, and he takes chaos and he puts it in order. And when you think about either the Egyptian gods or the Greek gods, do you think of gods that make order and fill things? No. Most of the time, these gods are causing chaos. In fact, in the Greek gods, or this is actually the Icelandic gods, you got Loki. A god whose whole purpose is to create chaos. We have gods who are at odds with each other. Gods who want things. They're fighting against one another. They're demanding things from their followers. They're taking things away. They're destroying things with thunderstorms and fire and flood. That's what they're doing. What does this God do? This God takes chaos and makes order. This God takes emptiness and fills it. And this God wants you to take a break for a sacred time. So in fact, that word, it's related to the word Sabbath. And obviously the story is going to be a lot about the Sabbath, because God rests on the seventh day. There are 4 words for the Sabbath. The first is the Sabbath, meaning the seventh day of the week. And in Jewish culture and law, you rest on the seventh day of the week. There's another word for Sabbath because during their festivals, there are certain days that you will rest during the festival, and it's not on the seventh day of the week. So, for example, Yom Kippur has a day of rest within the festival that's not on Saturday. And that's a different word for Sabbath. You're going to take a Sabbath that's part of this festival. That's not this word. There's also just the idea of stopping. Like we're working and we're done and now we're going to Sabbath. We're going to go take a break. Like you've been working on building something all day. And you're like, whew, I'm going to go Sabbath. We're done. It's time to stop. And the last word is this word that we find here, which is sacred times, which are going to be their festivals, which we're going to find out in Exodus are marked by the moon. They're all based on the timing of when the moon gets to a certain point. This word means to party, to take a break, to have a festival for 3 days or 7 days or however long it is, and to celebrate with your friends and your family, and to rest. And God is telling them that, look, I need you to, you've been in a world of bricks where you got to make bricks. You got to make bricks or what happens to you? You get beat with the whip. That's what we find was what happens to them in Exodus. You make bricks or you get beat, and if you repeat it again and too many times, you just get killed. You make bricks or you are worthless. And God tells them, I got to get that mindset out of you. You got to understand that to be my follower, to be my child, means that you got to learn how to party. You got to learn how to rest. You got to learn when it's time to stop working. You got to learn when it's time to celebrate and to worship me. And so that is the middle of our story here. It's the chiasm. It's the treasure that we need to find. It may not make a lot of sense to us right now, and it may not be a wow yet. But we can imagine how to these people, to these Israelites that came out of Egypt, this was like, whoa. This God is not like the other gods. This God is not like any of the gods that I heard about in Egypt or Mesopotamia or wherever I've heard stories about these gods. This God is different. This God, he loves his creation. He doesn't want to destroy it. He doesn't want to exploit it. He's crazy about it. What he has to say about it is that it's good, it's good, it's good, it's very good. I love this creation. This is a God who isn't looking for his people to do something for him. I've heard it said that this story shows us that we're not a human doing, we're a human being. God says, you have worth because I made you. Not because of what you can do. Not because of the work that you do. You have worth because I made you in my image. And you're special. And I want you to work. God's going to work for 6 days. But I also need you to learn how to stop working when it's time to stop. And remember what God did for us. Remember how much God loves us. And that's what this story is about. Now, I have a tendency to be long-winded. So what I'm going to struggle with is getting us done on time. And I can't be late. We got to have church in 11 minutes. And we got a 5-minute break built in here. So I got to stop early. But I want to leave you all time for questions, comments that you have. And so we've got 5 minutes right now. What do y'all see about the story? Johns, I know you're back there. You got something to say about this.
Well, it just, like you said, we know that this wasn't, when Moses brings this down, this wasn't the first creation story that they had heard. You know, they had been in Egypt, and they had heard all these things about how the Egyptian gods had brought about whatever. And God's message is always that he stands out. He's different. He's not a God that demands work until you drop, you know, all of these things that they were so used to, like you said. God is a God who loves, and He is the God. He's not in struggle with any other God. He is not trying to figure out where He's at in this world. He doesn't cower in heaven when something happens. He takes control. He is God, and He has proven it. At this point, you know, we're kind of out of context because we're talking about where it was delivered versus where we're beginning. You know, we're talking about it was delivered to people hundreds of years later, and now we're looking back on it. So, you know, there's some of that.
Yeah, when you talk about the other creation stories, and I can't think of any specific one in my mind right now, but what stands out about them to me is that it kind of happened by accident. They're all like, well, one day this God was doing this thing, and his ox accidentally dropped something, and that became the earth. Like all of these stories are some wild thing about what the God was doing, and He accidentally did something that caused the earth and all of the people to be there.
Same thing in our other creation God.
Yes.
That our kids are proven to worship, which is, you know, you were accident.
Right. And this story is not an accident. This is a God who set out, there was nothing and there was chaos. And He decided what this world was going to be. And He first goes about setting it into order and then filling it with things that have the ability to create themselves. You notice everything He creates the trees and the seeds that produce according to their kind. He creates the animals that produce according to their kind. He creates humans that produce according to their kind. It's like He gets it started, and then He Shabbats. He stops. And there's this idea there in Him stopping, like, why does He stop on day 7? Why does He need to stop? Is He tired? And no, He's not tired. I used to think it was because, well, He wanted to show us that we need to rest. He wants to institute the Sabbath. And I think that's a part of it. But I think the bigger idea here in this text is that He was done. It didn't need anything else. In fact, if we read what it says, chapter 2, verse 2. Well, let's start chapter 2, verse 1. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed. They were done in all their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work that He had been doing. So, on the seventh day, He rested. God didn't stop because He was tired. He didn't stop to make some point to us. He stopped because He was done. The work was done. There wasn't anything else to do because the creation was going to take over and start doing its work. Yes?
In the beginning, God created the heavens more than one.
Beautiful point. Now, and my question is that heaven's like heaven where He lives? Because the word heaven can mean just the sky and where the sun and the moon and the stars are. And it can mean where God is. Yeah. I tend to think that it's the sky. And I tend to think that that's like a preamble. It's like God, it's saying God created the heavens and the earth. Now let me tell you how He did it. And we'll start at the beginning when there was chaos and nothing. And then He creates both the heavens and the earth. And it turns out that creating the heavens, creating the sun, the moon, and the stars are going to be the center of our story. It's going to be the treasure. Now, I'll say one more thing about chiasms. Like, I don't want you to think of this as like a secret language. Like, when we find a chiasm and we study it, it's not that we're going to find something that you couldn't see before. The reason is because Mike read day 4. Whatever is at the center of the chiasm, if you read the chapter, if you read the story, you read it. It was there. And I've often, when I wanted to point out the significance of this, I don't say it's the center of the chiasm. I say there are 2 things that God created in this story that had a purpose. God didn't say He created the waters to do something. He didn't say he created the fish to do something. He didn't create the animals or the trees to do something. He created mankind to rule over the animals, and he created the sun and the moon and the stars to mark the sacred times. There are only two things in the story that have a purpose. They have a reason why they were created. It's us, and it's the heavens, meaning the outer space, stuff out there. It's there. The chiasm is to engage us, to make us see it and to make us to go work to find it ourselves. And to help us understand. When we see the chiasm, we go to the center, we start to understand what the story is about. And just to help you a little more, when we get to the Exodus story, God's going to send Moses down. He's going to talk to Pharaoh. What's the first thing he's going to tell Pharaoh? You would think it would be, hey, I need you to let my people go. You got my people down here enslaved. You got to let them go. That's not what he says. He says, my people need to go into the wilderness for 3 days to worship me because it's a sacred time. And it turns out that's what that story is about. All right. Anything else? We're going to finish on time on this first morning. But
you alluded to it at the beginning of the lesson, but we tend to get caught up in the science and the physics and how's all this come about? We spend a lot of our time trying to just make that make sense when the objective is to catch the underlying story, and not just here but throughout the whole Scripture. And the Jews, Israelites, they understood to look for that. And for us who have not been trained that way, it's hard for us to capture that because we get caught up in that doesn't make sense. How can you make all this in 1 day or 2 days?
We want logic, and we read stories like this, and like you said, we are trained to always thinking, what happened? What happened? This is going to be a story. Torah is going to be a story about a bunch of things that happened. And we are trained to think, what happened? It's why it happened. Yes.
I don't want to hold you up, but if you just think about it, the chapter we just read is the basis that we serve God and everything's going to be good. If we don't, we know what else is going to happen.
In the beginning, God.
And it was good.
Yes, and it was good. All right, we got 3 minutes. You can take a break. Use the bathroom. Get a drink of water. There's a water fountain back there. Thank you all for coming. I am so excited about this.